Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Petrick and Adrian Guarzales. How's it going, Adrian?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's cooling off a little bit here. It's not quite so horrible and like the inside of an armpit.
Oh yeah.
So
What's hot to you, Mike? Just curious.
it's 90 degrees and 80% humidity.
Well, Mike, it's been triple digits in Texas the last 2 weeks, so good.
There's a reason I moved.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a guest this episode. We're going to take care of the upkeep stuff. We're going to introduce our guest, and we will get on with things. So we'll try and keep this short. First up, we are brought to you as every week in part by Original Magic Art. Original Magic Art has all sorts of sleeves, dice bags, playmats, art prints from the history of Magic and art history as a whole. And we just updated how you're going to be able to get a discount. So you can still use that coupon code Commontary, all caps, spells it is the name of the show, but now you will get 10% off your order. You can also visit the URL originalmagicart.store/commentary. Again, spelled as it is in the name of the podcast, not all caps this time though. And you will, that'll, let them know that we sent you. So once again, you can still use the same code as you always have. It's just twice the discount now. And they have some sweet new playmats, including some maps of Dominaria, and they actually just got a whole bunch of new prints in. Adrian, what do you have for us?
Well, Mike, this week, as with every week, I'm here to tell you about our Patreon. For just $1 an episode, you too can hear the full show, including our extensive and amazing pre and post shows, and you get access to our patron-exclusive Discord channel, where it's always a party. I want to remind everyone that on Saturday the 11th, we will have the new Common Area episode up. See the exciting conclusion, showdown, what have you, between Boros Monarch and Is It Delver, and should be a good time.
Yeah. All right. So we've got those out of the way.
Finally,
tonight joining us on the show is Jeff, also known as Anynewprovince. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, what's going on?
I always feel weird. Are we okay using your actual real name?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
All right.
Yeah, I like that.
So Jeff produces a bunch of content. You stream, and you're probably best known for possibly Pauper Playable.
Is it possibly Pauper Playable? The most cringeworthy intro of all Magic contents.
Hey, let's not. Man, there's no way for me to make a joke here without offending someone. So you're great.
All right,
you're good. Just know you're not the worst.
Okay. I can take that.
but so you create a bunch of Pauper content, and we're gonna be talking about a couple of things tonight. So we'll get into those topics as we go, but Jeff has some great content that's out there, and he, we reached out to him. We figured we'd have him on the show because he is kind of the resident purveyor of sometimes some pretty deep cuts of jank from throughout Pauper. So we're definitely going to get into that. But first, there was an announcement about Pauper on MTG Arena. So Arena, for those who don't know, is the next new Magic product. It's like MitGo, but with an updated Hearthstone-esque, like, real interface. And they're bringing Pauper to this, but it only has cards from Standard, so it's going to be Standard Legality Pauper. So I wanted to get people's feedback on this and what they felt about their decision to include this particular format for one of these weekend-long events.
Yeah, so for Standard Pauper, I think it's weird because I've been in a feedback bubble for so long where people antagonize Standard Pauper, and I was going to and wanted to create some content with reference to it. So I was kind of delving in and brewing Standard Pauper for the first time, because I know, didn't you guys were part of the Pauper community when Standard Pauper was still a thing, right? When it was still going on before.
I think we were sort of in at the tail end of it. I think I only ever played in one tournament, and it was in Consteros.
Yeah,
because it kind of tapered off like shortly after BFZ, I want to say, because I remember there was a period where like, oh no, because the last thing I ever heard about it was when Kaladesh came in, they had to ban Self-Assembler from the format.
Oh wow, yeah, that's crazy.
So I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I guess I was just playing Pauper. I guess I just wasn't playing standard Pauper at the time. I had access to it because I've been playing Pauper that long. Yeah.
The problems with standard Pauper are that it really more closely resembles better limited than actual constructed. And I feel like one of the big issues was there were clearly, and I mean, I guess it's not so different from our format, but I think the illusion of format depth is just absolutely out the window when you're playing with standard Pauper. That being said, it being included on Arena, I think the three of us agree is actually a really good thing because it not only legitimizes our format, but it brings people into the Pauper verse. You know, they've heard about it now.
Absolutely.
And I think moving forward, like we could see, because Arena will continue to get new sets, we could see this like weird spin-off format that is everything from, where does it start? Kaladesh onwards. There could be some weird format that develops out of
kind
that
of like
Pauper card
Frontier
pool.
Pauper almost. I know it's not quite as long.
Don't call it that. We'll doom it right away if we call
Yeah,
it
yeah, I know.
anything.
Arena Pauper.
Yeah.
Arena
Pauper is a
There
much
you
better
go.
name. But no, I'm actually very excited. I don't even mind if that they're just doing events on the weekends. I actually did not watch the YouTube video. Are they planning on doing on-demand games of standard Pauper?
So they're having rotating weekly events was what I took away from it. And one of them is going to be Pauper. They're basically giving us a shot.
Well, my question, I guess phrased another way, is if I logged onto MTG Arena, there is quick play. I don't have to play in an event. Can I play Pauper in quick play?
I believe so,
Yeah,
but only
so,
for a limited time.
Oh, that's not nearly as good. Because I could see a corner of MTG Arena that if you could play Pauper on demand no matter when, you know, just even like if in Hearthstone where you're just laddering, I think that would be pretty successful. Commons are extremely easy to get on MTG Arena compared to the rest of the cards. I mean, they're commons, and you don't even really need to pay anything to get a lot of good ones. So I'm a little disappointed to hear that you won't be able to just fire on demand whenever you want. Maybe they'll change that.
And that kind of puts me in an awkward position as a content creator too, because if I did, like, I would love to do MTG Arena. Obviously, I won't be able to play actual Pauper on MTG Arena, but I think it'd be really sweet to kind of dive into standard Pauper and have that really cool interface, introduce people to the format that way. But knowing that it's only going to be around for a week, I'll have to dedicate a lot of resources to getting the whole format, like getting every single card, you know, finding popular strategies, and developing content that people want to see with reference to standard Pauper on Arena. But then what if that test week doesn't go well? You know,
it's not even a full week too.
Oh,
it's
no,
just a weekend.
Yeah. So for me, it's like tempting. Like, I think it'd be really cool, but I don't know if it's worth the worry. And if I did do content, would it help it succeed? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's really tough.
I have to watch this video. I just find it really hard to believe that they have formats on there that you wouldn't be able to play whenever you want.
So they had Singleton on Arena for a while, and then they took it away. And then I saw a bunch of tweets of people being like, "Hey, I've been streaming Arena. I'd love to have Singleton back at some point because it was really fun." And like, apparently this is a thing they do. They it's kind of like I've been led to believe through other podcasts that Hearthstone has something similar that I believe is called Tavern Brawl.
Yeah, but that's
where
that's
you have
not
like goofy restrictions.
Yeah, but that's not what I want. Tavern Brawl is like this. Tavern Brawl is its own thing, and the whole point is that it's like you said, it's goofy restrictions. A lot of the times, your deck is just random. Also, you don't even build a deck. So I don't think of Magic in that same way though. So I when I think of Magic, it's like I want to queue up and play as much constructed as I want. With Tavern Brawl, it's like you do it once, you win the pack, and then you're kind of done.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little funny how they've decided to treat this, but hopefully it does well. But yeah, it does kind of leave us in this weird spot where, Jeff, you don't know if you want to make videos on it. We don't know if we're going to be able to actually talk about any of it because they're not currently publishing Arena results to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, it does really put it in a strange place. But not to say that I don't want to explore it at all and that I don't think people should. But yeah, as content creators, I think, yeah, we're definitely in an awkward position.
Yeah. All right. So that's neat. Definitely, if you're on Arena, go check that out. And, you know, showing interest in this is indirectly showing interest in Pauper, and every time you do that, Wizards of the Coast does pay attention, believe it or not. And so if you want people to care about this format, and you have the ability to support it, go out and do that. That's my spiel. So with that passed, so Jeff, we've got you on, and last week we got to talk about some delightful, terrible jank. And I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about your approach, because you are pretty constantly putting out new deck lists that have ranged from really, really like almost there to like some definitely more out there kind of decks. So I kind of wanted to get a little bit of how you approach brewing for Pauper, especially with the fact that I know that you release batches of new videos that are kind of all new commons from standard sets as like your focal point. So I kind of wanted to get a little bit of insight into the process there.
Yeah, so when Possibly Pauper Playable started, it was because back then I did it as like kind of an accountability thing, because I was brewing decks around infinite combos. I thought Pauper was this undiscovered format. There were all these cards, and obviously someone missed an interaction somewhere along the way. So I wanted to dig in and kind of dredge that up and do that. But I found myself kind of fixating like on a single kind of strategy combo or deck for a really long time, and at that point I was starting to transition into creating content and thinking, what could be something interesting and kind of fun I could do every week, something new, with the MTG Goldfish kind of format of always putting out new content, sometimes being more exciting than other times. And then I kind of remembered this one weekend where it was just after Bloodbriar was released. I think that was Eldritch Moon. And I remember just goldfishing bad Bloodbriar decks on my deck building app, like laying on my couch or whatever. And I was so fixated on that process. And I was like, what if this is something I really want to do. I barely have played any games with these decks. I don't know if they're good or not. So I kind of took that and said, why don't I go into new standard sets and take all of these cards that people like immediately dismiss without ever trying, and not only try to make them playable in shells that already exist, because we see that happening all the time, but like really try to highlight them, which is an interesting challenge, because other jank brewers and video creators, they have rares and mythics that do really cool things and like light up the stack and stuff like that. But I think it's this like great challenge at having underpowered, a card like last week's Take Vengeance. Like I thought that was an amazing challenge to be like, this is a Take Vengeance deck, like it's a bad white removal spell, you know what I mean? So I kind of loved that. I love that every week I get to present this kind of immense brewing challenge. And like you said, sometimes it works out a little bit better than others. But that's one of my favorite parts of it, is just, I'm probably the only one running leagues with these cards. And I think that's kind of cool.
It is really cool. If I may interject, I think you're doing the community, not to brown nose or anything. I think you're doing the community a great service, because you're right. We dismiss those cards all the time. So it is great that someone is trying them out. And also, no one's really doing what you do. No one is really brewing the kind of jank you're making, and that's cool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that's become like kind of an introspective thing, but at the same time, it's because of how I interact with the community. So if you guys do frequent the same forums that I do a lot of the time, like Reddit, Discord, Twitter, things like that, and you see the same kind of suggestions come up from the community all the time. It's like, get a trinket mage in there, you know what I mean? Get a bone splitter in there, or things like that. Or why not, let's make this a reanimator deck or something. So I'm constantly even trying to dodge those tropes, like to remain as impartial and as original as possible. And it does hamstring me sometimes, but I feel like the result is like you say, these like weird, really original, like escape routes decks.
The decision to highlight specifically standard cards is what I think helps you from falling into those traps, because you're right. Suggestions like add Trinket Mage and Bone Splitter, those suggestions, like, yeah, people have tried that a lot. You know what I mean? But you're really trying to come up with something new. And I think that focusing really on standard, is very key. So I think it's a great idea, and it makes me even the more sad that standard Pauper might not be a regular thing on MTG Arena. So I'm hoping they change it, because I think it'll be a big help.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love for it to. I think it would do a lot for me. I'd get a whole other series out of it, really, and that would be amazing. Like I would love that.
I mean, it looks great. Like arena content is so much nicer to watch just from a visual side of things. And I, as a content creator, I'm a little jealous of the people who get to play around with that, because it looks really nice. So I guess when one of these standard sets comes out, do you just immediately sit down and go through all the commons and figure out like, I think I can make these 5 or 6 of them work, and like here's the 4 that are going to take a lot of polish, but I think I can get them there? Or like when new cards are hitting, or is it like a progressive thing where as the duration of a set's sort of release to preview season of the next set, is that kind of every week you're just looking through and you're like, well, I haven't done this one yet? Like what kind of, what's your approach to that sort of stuff?
So when spoilers are coming out, I'll try to pinpoint stuff. If I can start brewing during spoiler season, that's fantastic. Like if I see a card that really stands out and I can get a deck together, you know, that's a weekend's worth of brewing and testing I might not have to do in the future. You know, I can go out and get pizza with my friends that Saturday or something. So I'll try to do it during spoiler season as much as possible. And then as soon as the set's spoiled, I actually lean on kind of Reddit and Discord and the cards that people are actually interested in seeing. And I'll kind of parse the set for those cards, because you know everything can go into a bad deck or something, right? So I try to dredge up exactly what people are interested in seeing, and then I'll take that feedback and try to use those cards in brews. But then there's this other interesting dynamic where I want to play cards. I want to spread the power over a season, but at the same time, I have to race people to 5 when they 5-0 with a new card, because it's for some reason, for one reason or another, people are less engaged when I don't brew the deck, which I think is really ironic because I don't consider myself the most like, you know, tuned or proficient brewer. But so I'll try to race people to brewing the new decks before, you know, I'm taking out somebody else's 5-0 list, which I personally have no trouble with. Honestly, like it's a huge boon to me if somebody takes a new card and 5-0s with it. It gets to be like, you know, I can say, look, somebody 5-0 with a card. This is what my series is all about. Let's play with it. But that race is kind of a really funny thing. And then other than those kind of dynamics like spoiler season, interacting with the community, racing people to 5-0s, it's really just like this existential crisis I have at the end of my stream every Tuesday where I'm like, man, I'm going to have to play with Take Vengeance next week, and I don't know what I'm going to do.
I mean, so that said, like the decks you manage to put together are usually, it's nice that it's not always just like, all right, so I've just put this new card in as a test slot in like an established deck. And yeah, like the Dawn Galaratron deck, which, yes, it does include Take Vengeance. It's not like the game-winning part, but it does synergize with the rest of it, and it's kind of similar to the Ristic-Tron lists in its actual end goal, but it goes about it in a very different way. So I think that's what's really interesting. So I guess, are there any like standouts for you, stuff that, you know, you thought was going to work and then just completely fell flat on its face, or like stuff that performed way better than you ever expected? Like, what have been kind of some of the all-time highs and lows in that regard?
Yeah, so my favorite underdog story is 100% the Custody Squire Metalcraft deck. It was just a mono white Metalcraft deck. It looked a lot like Cyborg's. And when I was putting it together, I was like, you know, this is fine. I think, you know, it might be okay. And then I ended up 5-0ing with it because Custody Squire, if you can keep yourself alive and defend yourself, you can kind of, or well, that week in particular, that is, it just seemed like the meta was a little weak to 3/3 flyers in Oriok Sunchaser and Custody Squire. So basically, I just lucked into playing some evasive threats with some decent cyborg cards, and then took the deck to a 5-0 just incidentally. So that was my favorite kind of underdog story. I really didn't think much of that deck, and I'm trying to think. And it's funny because there's been a lot of like colossal failures. Dawn Galaratron was one of those. It tested like almost flawlessly. So in testing, I lost almost not at all. I think I lost one match to burn out of like the 6 or 7 test matches I took it out in, and then I just got just slammed in the stream league. And that happens kind of frequently, right? Because the competition scales a lot, and it's a lot of opportunity cost to kind of like run leagues all week to only get like beat on the stream or something like that. So I try to keep it organic, and I try to only practice in the tournament practice room. But there's a real cost to that too, where you know, I'm probably not getting optimal competition. So yeah, so I'd say Dawn Galaratron is the most recent example of something falling flat on its face, and yeah, the rest of them I'm just kind of happy if I eke out a 2-3 or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like as long as at the end of the day, like I think it's great that you set yourself up not as like, we're going to 5-0 with this jank. It's just like, I'm gonna play this. Let's have fun. Like let's go in, and if we win, great, like it worked. But if it doesn't work, like, you know what, it didn't work. It's probably not pauper playable, and you can move on, which is I think like a great setup. So I guess you mentioned, so you do all your testing and tournament practice and then move into the leagues. And do you think that in any way like sort of negatively affects how some of these decks work, because you're, as you mentioned, you're playing in sort of like a different class of like serious competitiveness? Do you think that that's like in any way negative to the end product, or do you think that like that's just like, obviously I understand we're not all, you know, super rich and can just run leagues at will, but do you think that that's in any way, shape, or form like kind of running you into this issue where a deck can perform great in tournament practice, but then when you actually go live with it, it just completely rug out from underneath the feet when, you know, the boxing gloves come off?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's 100% an issue. And it was, so I'm really lucky. Like I just recently got monetized on YouTube, and people have been mega supportive on Twitch. So anybody that's out there that's doing it, thank you guys. It's amazing that happened at all. So I have enough resources to kind of get back in the black and actually start running leagues with decks. The only deck I ever did test in a league was mono red land destruction, because I had this real intimate, passionate weekend with mono red land destruction. I wanted it to look really good. So I was like, I'm going to take this out in the league and I'm going to see like how it performs. And I incidentally did well that day, but I think it's because the challenge was going on at the same time. So there was a lot of people, you know, I blew up their first 2 lands and they would scoop or whatever. And I didn't get to try the weird card advantage suites and stuff that I included. But yeah, I would love to do that with every single brew I make. Like at least take it into one league to just test it against the meta, and see what happens. But that's kind of a toss up too. Like one of the things with tournament practice is that there's no risk in ending a game you're obviously going to lose. So, you know, with Dawn Glaretron, if I get to turn 3 and I was at 4 life, like there's a really high chance that I was going to lose that game. So it was possible for me to just scoop, move on, you know, start another game, start another match, try a different matchup, and see what I can change based on that. But I don't think that's worth it. I really do think to ideally brew, you should be brewing against the meta you're going to be playing against.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how you get the reps in, not only against the right decks, but you know, player quality. I lost my train of thought.
I mean, I guess so you've got the example we featured a while back, the that escape routes deck that you came up with. Are there any other cards like that are not current but have kind of like fallen to the wayside and are just neglected and you think could potentially work? Or is that kind of a standout, like weird? Because in our episode we definitely discussed it as being on a similar axis to something like Tortured Existence. So I'm just kind of curious about like when you reach back a little bit into these older cards, is there like a big old database you've got either in your head or physically typed out of like weird jank that you think could work? Or is it just kind of whatever comes to mind that particular week?
No, that's actually what I live on, is the jank bank. I just got it up in my brain, and it gets me to sleep at night. Sometimes it stops me from being hungry in the morning. No, I have the like, yeah, kind of this encyclopedic knowledge of really bad cards that could potentially enable a combo if something ever came out. And I know them more for their effects, like how you might be able to parse them in you know, like Scryfall or something like that. Like there's a skeleton that I believe costs 5 mana. You can pay 2 mana to give a white creature persist. I think it's like a 2/2. Like it's pretty bad, but like, what if you gave, you know, Miss Moon Griffin persist? That's like reanimation on a stick. What if the thing you reanimate puts a counter on the Miss Moon Griffin? You can keep looping the persist, reanimating the stuff out of your grip. You know what I mean? So like, that's one of them. And then Thermopod is the closest thing we have to Ashnod's Altar, unfortunately. So that's a 5 mana, I think it's lucky enough to be a 3/3, but it might be a 3/2. And it's got like pay 1 snow mana and give it haste, because, you know, that's what I want to do with it. And you can sacrifice a creature to add red mana to your mana pool. So that's the only way that, besides like instants and sorcery, so that's the only permanent that we have access to that can repeatedly sacrifice something for mana that isn't a goblin, because we have Skirk Prospector that does that. So if you may could get real janky with it and turn something into a goblin. So those are my 2 favorite ones. Bramble Elemental is really cool. Whenever an aura gets attached to it, you make 2 plant tokens, sacrifice those to Thermopod, bounce a Crown of Flame, put Crown of Flame back on Bramble Elemental, sack the token. You know what I mean? So you get these, you find these weird things, and the way it started for me is I would just look up, untap, just the keyword untap in a search engine, because I was around for the advent of Peregrine Drake and Cloud of Fairy, so I was like, obviously untapping stuff is completely broken. so that's how it started, and then eventually it kind of led into, you know, sacrifice, add mana, kind of like those keywords, you know.
What do you keep? So in that same vein, when you're looking at a new card, what are you looking for? Are you looking for untap, add mana? Like, what to you is like, wow, this card is obviously like something I want to play with.
Yeah, so well, there's a couple things I want to talk about with that. So right now, I don't really feel super spoiled as the guy that plays all of the new standard Pauper cards in the Pauper format. There are some that are very good, like Elvish Rejuvenator stood out to me just because it puts a land directly onto the battlefield untapped, which is a super powerful ability that we don't see very often. We've seen it with like forests and things like that. So novelty is something I'm really looking for. Take Vengeance was interesting, but we'd seen it before, and I'm just using that as an example. I guess Gearsmith Prodigy was interesting because we don't have a lot of 1 mana 2/2s in blue and stuff like that. So other older standard cards, like the cards I've covered already, I'm looking for just novelty, just things that are different, even if it just costs a little bit less. Like Demonic Vigor cost 1 mana, and every other black aura we've had that's recurred a creature has cost 3 or more, I think was what it was. But it put it directly back onto the battlefield, like Angelic Renewal. So really just novelty. But I've got high hopes because Wizards has kind of noted that they're developing for Pauper now. So I think we'll get some of those cool engine cards kind of coming through.
How many cards are you typically looking to play in a given set? Like, obviously you're not playing everything, right?
No way. So there's so many weeks until we get a new set released, right? And it kind of becomes feast or famine at some point. And I see it as just like, this is going to get more challenging, and I'm going to have to build a deck that is either going to be objectively bad, which I try to avoid, or I'm going to go to the 5-0 results. I'm going to find a weird janky deck. You know, people are talking about it. It's interesting. I'll take that out for a week and just save people the punishment of watching me 0-5 with a deck that plays something like Crippling Chill. You know what I mean? But I'd love to go examine kind of those engine cards, the combo cards I was talking about before. But I don't know.
And
if that's
I actually have another follow-up question. You got me thinking all sorts of lines now. Get to Lava Runner. Did you think that was going to be good? And what do you think of it in the burn deck now?
No, so it's weird, right? Like I talk about the feedback bubble thing. So we have like a comparatively small community. Like the voice of reason is often kind of drowned out, where somebody might say, you know, this could be really good in burn, and we instantly have like the 8 people who are obviously going to antagonize that and be devil's advocates. And so I'm reading through these Reddit threads and I'm getting discouraged about cards, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, you know, it's garbage guide, you know, this goblin's going to be bad. Granted, I played with it a few times. I don't think it's like groundbreaking or anything like that, but I really appreciate that people are comparing it to Firebrand Archer, talking about why it's better, and talking about what it can do. But it is a little unfortunate that we're subject to all of the negative discussion, and it takes some rogue brewer who hasn't read any of that to 5-0 to really open up the discussion again. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't really have the breadth of feedback that other formats do, and I feel like that affects me a lot. I'm trying.
Mike, you got to be more positive about new cards.
Well, not necessarily, right? Not necessarily. Like you guys are only one source. Like it's a scientific thing, and people are entitled to their opinions, I guess is what I'm saying. But when I do my homework, I just like to have more opinions to look at. You know what I mean? Like more facets of opinions. I would never try to change somebody's mind about a card, except when I take it out.
Except right now, or I want you to tell me what card we've been wrong about.
Oh my goodness. I don't even think I think you got the wrong guy for that job.
Well, there was one not that long ago that we
There's been a lot.
Admitted we were
There's a lot of
about.
cards we're wrong about.
Yeah, and like I honestly like I can't pinpoint it. I don't know if because you guys have like an optimistic point about a lot of them anyway, right?
I tend to have an optimistic point about a lot of them. Adrian's the realist who goes, this is bad, don't do that.
Yeah, so there is 2 facets kind of with you, and maybe that's part of the reason why I enjoy listening to you guys so much, because you you do get the whole kind of spectrum of what could be possible with a card. But I can't think of anything discreetly like that. I was listening to a set review and I was like, oh, I'm gonna nail these guys with this one.
If you ever do, please let us know. I would love to hear
be
about.
fair.
Yeah.
to be fair, there was a period brief. This was before the podcast, and looking back on it, I think the wrongest I've ever been, and this is honestly, I think worse than the time that we goofed up on Peregrine Drake. I honestly didn't think that Gurmag Angler would see the variety of play it did at the time. When it was about to release, I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like, right, like it's going to be like a
to be fair, Mike,
3-mana 5/5.
I don't think anyone realized
okay.
how busted Delph was.
And then,
yeah, because think about like Treasure
including
Cruise, which is
R&D.
banned.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. But it was one of those things where like we had Treasure Cruise in the format for a while, so like I don't get the out of like, oh well, we didn't really know. It was like, no, people were jamming this in every deck that played islands or even just a blue source. So it was like, I feel like that was one of the greatest times I goofed up when I saw a card. I was like, yeah, it's fine. Like it's just a 5/5, and then it was like, oh, okay, this is half of the stuff I'm going to see for the next 4 months.
The card I've been wrongest about was actually the Eldrazi. Back right before Eldrazi Winter, I was like, why would anyone play this dumb colorless deck? But that was back when it was still like a mono black deck and was like trying to use Relic to abuse like Blight Herder and stuff. It was before the white version really came out, and I was just like, this deck is so dumb. Who cares? And then the Eye of Ugin interaction, blah blah blah. So
yeah, that was a cool time.
So I guess something that I'm interested in is, do you have like a list of like kind of half finished shells at this point? Because you were talking about some of these cards that you know of from back in the day of questionable quality that you wanted to build a deck with. Do you have like, like a 45 card list that's just waiting to get filled out with a couple of other things, or do you just kind of have those on the back burner until you feel more sure about like your ability to put together a full 75?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I don't have decks formed around them. It's more of like a meditation tool for me at this point, because they're all really bad. I like my criteria is that it isn't really about even the 75, because if you think about Peregrine Drake, right, like people were running it in Izzet lists, people were running it in Tron lists, like it was, that combo could fit in a lot of things, and a lot of those cards that I was talking about are combo pieces. Like that's what I really like to ruminate on when I'm not thinking about my my series and stuff like that. And because they don't serve the series, it's almost as if I'm just waiting until that gets down to a 2-card combo or a 3-card combo, and then that's when it's time to pull the stops and build the deck. Because I think wasting my time building the 4 or 5-card combo built around these cool cards that I care about, like I've done that before. I was doing that before I started these series, and it's kind of fruitless. You just get your butt whooped by blue black and mono black in the tournament practice rooms for a couple weeks, and then you give up. So my floor for combo decks like that, I always think about things like Rallygon or Tireless Tribe. If that's what it takes to break through, and not even with Rallygon necessarily. I think it's a really great deck, but a lot of people have said it needs a certain meta to survive. So if my combo is going to make a 75 at some point, not for the purpose of content creation, then it's going to have to beat Tireless Tribe or Rallygon, and it's going to have to do a good job at it.
Yeah, that's fair, because I definitely know that we're guilty of a lot of the time on the show just like talking about a deck, and at the end of the deck tech kind of just saying, well, why wouldn't you just play X instead of this? And I definitely feel like if I was just sitting around brewing stuff all the time, that feeling would definitely sink in after a while, that it's like, I should just be playing this other deck. Like I'm making a bad blitz, or I'm making a bad stompy deck.
I want to get into our own time of loving the jank, Mike. As you may recall, there is a certain brew that is very near and dear to our hearts. So near and dear, in fact, that we actually have played it on camera and it is on our YouTube channel. I'm talking, of course, about Pig Trinket. So I'm just saying, that's a deck where easily people could say, well, why don't you just play, I don't know, literally anything else? But we liked Pig Trinket.
We did, and we had a good long run with it. But it was never great,
but it was so much fun to play. So it was so much fun to play.
So I guess something that has been kind of coming up sort of incessantly in these guest interviews. So there's and I think part of this is the fact that Pauper is starting to see a little bit more time in the spotlight with larger and larger events being scheduled for it in the paper world. There's always this question of the fact that we are an ununified format where there's this handful of cards that you can't play in Pauper because it's not legal on MitGo, and most of these large events are using the MitGo list. So I guess my question for you, Jeff, is have you looked through those 400 odd cards, and is there one in there that you know of that you just really want to get your hands on and play around with?
No, Michael, I'm so glad you asked. If you're from Wizards and you're out there listening, tell me who I have to send a pizza to or where I've got to put the sign for you to make Ashnod's Altar available as a Pauper playable common on Magic the Gathering Online. Because
I'm super interested.
Like,
I'm super interested. Why Ashnod's? I cannot figure out how to combo with that thing.
The possibilities are just endless. You know, like you sack a creature, get 2 colorless mana. Use that 2 colorless mana to give a white creature like Miss Moon Griffin persist. You regenerate something out of your graveyard, it puts a counter on the Miss Moon Griffin. You know, you make infinite mana. You got Ashnod's Altar on the back. But no, it's just I just feel like that's got to be my card. You know, that's the jankiest combo enabler that hasn't seen the light of day. There's other ones. There's like this healer card, which would be really great with Epicure of Blood. You pay like 1 colorless mana, exile a card from your graveyard, gain a life. You know, Epicure would trigger. So there are niche cards that would be good for the series and stuff like that. But no, Ashnod's Altar.
Well,
I'm ready to die on that.
I don't know
now.
if it would be. I think that someone would find a way to break that card. That card is janky only because our payoffs are common. That card is insane in other formats.
Yeah, sack your 2 spell stutter sprites in response to Electricity. Pay blue, Gush, hard cast Gush with Ashnod's Altar. I mean, clearly it's too good.
Look, I'm just saying.
Oh man,
you know, like good mana like that, like fast mana, that's always going to be good somewhere. So I guess not High Tide. I lied.
Mm-hmm.
Not in our format.
Yeah, I mean, High Tide is probably still very good if it wound up sneaking into the format. It's probably just not broken. There's probably something to do with it.
I think there's another one too. There's a creature, it's a black creature. I think it costs 2, and you can tap it to sacrifice an artifact to add mana to your mana pool equal to its converted mana cost. And I can't remember what he's called. Soldevi Acolyte, maybe? Or Soldevi something or other? But anyway,
oh, yeah. There's a couple of those now. Because there's I think 2 of them, and they're both black. And then there's also that green 1-use one that you sack a creature and you get that much. It's CMC +1 of any color of mana.
Yeah, Metamorphosis. That's out now. I tried to brew around that when that got released on Magic Gathering. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh man,
no, we did.
Hey man, I was trying to ride that train. I had it in an Emerge deck with Cathodian as kind of the main, and Sky Shroud Cutter as well. So you can play Sky Shroud Cutter for free by letting your opponent gain. It's some ridiculous. I think it's 4 or 5 life or something. But it costs 4 mana. So you can go Forest, Sky Shroud Cutter, Metamorphosis, Sky Shroud Cutter, play a 5-drop on turn 1. So it's like impossible to set up, but I tried it. Shucks, I sure did.
Okay, so I actually have open like a list of all these assorted cards. I'm gonna just pitch some of these at you, and I kind of want like an idea if there is one. So, are you familiar with Blazing Effigy?
Yeah. the only effigy, right? That's the only common effigy, the only Pauper legal effigy. Yeah.
So for folks at home, it's 1 in a red for a creature. It's actually an elemental. It's been errated.
Yeah, it has the 5th official Lord of the Rings book printed in its text box.
Oh yeah, this is a reader. So it's from Legends, and when it dies, it deals X damage to target creature, where X is 3+. Oh, it just says creatures. Okay, never mind. I thought it was creature or player.
Hey, put what was that card? People were brewing Ragged Veins on something. Sack some effigies.
Oh no.
GG.
So you can chain your effigies together, and maybe like, I don't know. I guess you could like supernatural stamina.
Yeah, this is
halfway through.
This is going to be worse Zuberas. We should just. There's only 1 effigy. Like why?
Oh yeah, it specifically says cards named Burning Effigy. Like it only cares about like you can't trick it into getting anything more.
And no, it's creature type effigy. So I guess you could use like changelings or something, but yeah.
but then they'd have to deal damage. It's just it's this big old nightmare. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think of these other cards, because a lot of these are like kind of right in your realm of just out there
It's also got
enough.
Susan Van Camp art.
Because yeah, good old Susan in her very iconic style. Soldevi Adnate is the one you were thinking about, the blacker artifact creature.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the day I tried to figure out a way to make Tron work with Pestilence, and I could never get it to click. Oof. because there is a way to filter colorless mana into black mana. It's Bog Initiate, which is a 1/1 that you can pay one generic mana and get a black mana out of it. So there are options. It's always kind of the struggle, and this is what happens every time I sit down and try and like brew an idea out.
Yeah, it's the tragedy of adding a card, right? It's like, oh, I could do this if I just had this, and then and then you're already one card more than Tireless Trap combo. So it's kind of you know what I mean? So it's kind of the tragedy of brewing combo in Pauper. But we've seen 3 and 4 card combo get there. I'm pretty sure like any Ghostly Flicker combo is 3 cards, and I'm pretty sure Familiars, which is championed by 420 Dragon, that ends up having to be 4 cards to actually combo off and win, right? But one of those cards is an island sometimes, but you do need 4 cards, right? So they can get there, but I don't think Blazing Effigy is the one I'm putting all my eggs in a basket for.
That's fair. I did think that it was any target, because if it was any target, then I could see a way that might work.
Yeah.
It probably is just worse Zubera's, but so I guess you keep referring to combo. Is that kind of where you naturally are drawn to with these kind of more out there cards? Is that just kind of where your mind goes to, that I think I can combo with this? Or because we've gotten all these weird cards lately, like kind of smattered into the treasure chests. Is that kind of the combo bait stuff, or is that just where you kind of naturally wind up with Magic decks in general?
With new cards, I'm always thinking about possibly Pauper playable, and like, is this something I can put into a deck and actually win a few matches? Is this card possibly Pauper? You know what I mean? Like, so that's my relationship with new cards. But old cards, I've been getting a little bit better at evaluating them kind of on face value as I've gone back. I think most of the ones I've talked about today, those are kind of like, those are the ones I think of that they actually get me to sleep at night. I'm like thinking about how to combo with Mistmoon Griffin, but now when I'm going through things, like I think the most recent example I can think of is Silver Drake. So I was building Court Hussar decks. I came across Silver Drake, which is 1 white-blue for a 3/3 flyer. You have to return a blue or white creature to your hand when you cast it. So it feels a little bit like a worse core Skyfisher. And I was thinking, like, it's a 3/3 flyer for 3. It recurs a permanent. We've seen cards like this similarly costed that are really powerful. Like, does this go somewhere? But it seems like those cards that I have pinpointed, and I'm like, oh, I'll come back to this someday, they never really seem to make my series decks, because possibly Pauper playable, like, I have to use established, very powerful cards to try to carry weak kind of newly released cards, so those ones that I want to try out, they usually take a back seat. But yeah, combo is one of the places I love. Combo decks, combo is super fun, but that's only because that's how narrow my scope used to be in terms of Pauper and how something's powerful. It was like really zeroed in on Cloud of Fairies and Peregrine Drake are the best cards in the format. I'm gonna find something like that.
I mean, to be fair, that is kind of the history of Pauper, is very powerful combo decks that eventually need to be banned. Like we've had Storm, we've had Infect, we've had Drake, we've had Fairies. Like, all of our ban list is just, this enables a stupid combo, you can't play it anymore. So that makes sense. And we've talked before at length on this show about how Tireless Tribe is, there's no logical reason that something this rickety should work, but it does.
Man, I actually love that deck. Like, I don't know if people see me play against it. Like every time someone resolves a circular logic that they cast for madness by discarding to a tireless tribe, I'm just like, oh, the cogs, they're turning. It's beautiful, and I hate it, and I'm gonna die, but it's wicked.
Yes, circular logic, the card they always have when I can interact with it. It's always
That's
it
one of the
always
decks
feels
that I
that
think
way.
is the most pauper to me. I don't know, because it is janky.
Yeah, no, it really is. Like how it's all the powerful blue cantrips gush to get enough cards in your hand to discard to a white creature that you're running 2
And I
planes
actually
for.
think you hit the nail on the head. It just has the best cantrips. And it's a deck that abuses them really, really, really well because Gush is essentially like 4 cards for that deck. It is kind of elegant in the way that it's janky, if the way that it abuses these extremely powerful blue cards.
Yeah, it seriously is like my Starry Night, you know? Like it's incredible. Like I love playing against that deck even though it's I think somebody I don't know if it was Links to the Past or R&D Function. They're a brewer from the Discord. I know they post on Reddit sometimes as well. One of the people behind Pestilence. I think it was them that said, Tribe is one of those decks that either looks completely unbeatable or completely unplayable. and I love it when I love it either way. I love it.
It definitely has some times where it just sits there and like casts a ton of cantrips, and every so often it'll catch me off guard, and I'll just be like, "What is this person doing?" And then it's like, "Oh, I'm dying on the next turn, aren't I?"
Yeah.
Like out of nowhere, this is done.
Yeah, that dead cell is just turn 1 Evolving Wilds Gitaxian Probe, and it's like we're playing Tribe right now.
It can also turn. I think it can turn 2, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
if they just luck into it and you have no interaction, they can just straight up murder you turn 2.
And generally they will.
So I guess when you're working on these brews, what are kind of the sort of safety cards? Because you mentioned sort of propping up some of these jankier things with established good cards. Is like we all know the obvious ones, like you play your cantrips in your blue decks and you play all this stuff. Is there any other sort of like staples that you think more people should be getting their play sets of if they're really into the idea of brewing?
I don't think it's underrated at all, and people probably already have, but like Core Skyfisher, like my bad decks have won games on the back of Core Skyfishers that they would have no business winning otherwise. Like Core Skyfisher resetting a Kabira Crossroads or something like that. You know what I mean? Like Core Skyfisher is one of those carry cards. Gurmag Angler can be one of those carry cards if you really like need it to be. Though I prefer for it not to be. So Core Skyfisher is definitely one of them. I would say Spellstutter Sprite, but that doesn't. I'm trying to actually get away from that because whenever you're going to play a Spellstutter Sprite deck, generally you'll have Fairy Miscreants and Ninja of the Deep Hours, and like, are you really not a Delver deck at that point?
Yeah.
So that's another one of my favorite kind of carry packages, and I have a couple of cards I'm trying to highlight, like the new card. Like I did this blue-black Fairies brew that used Dream Spoiler Witch, I think is what her name is.
Oh, the one with instants.
Yeah, exactly. So whenever you cast an instant, give a creature -1/-1. So I just jammed the fairy package in with that, and like a couple of other, I think it was Moment of Craving was the instant I was highlighting at that time. So it's decks like that. I'll use the fairy package. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Just like burn, like Lightning Bolt and Firebolt. Like those cards, you can kill somebody with a playset of both of those. Like I think there's something understated about how effective just having 20 points of burn in your deck can be. If everything else goes badly, your opponent removes all your creatures, but you still somehow manage to sneak through 20 points of burn somehow, or like get a 2-for-1 off a Firebolt. Like I'm actually a huge fan of both of those cards. And I know maybe I shouldn't be, but yeah.
No, I mean they're good cards. Like that's part, like having a way to go face is part of why we've seen Boros Monarch become the deck that it is. And I guess kind of on that note, I know since you're playing such a wide variety of decks, it's going to vary from time to time, but are there, what do you kind of view as the boogeyman of the format that you're always just not looking forward to playing against? I know you appreciate Tribe, but like, is there that one deck that you just know every time you run up against it in a league, you're like, all right, here it goes? Or is it kind of dependent on what the flavor of the week is?
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of depends on the week. It depends on if I'm trying to prey on something. I think Mono Blue Delver though Mono Blue Delver kind of takes the cake. That deck is ridiculous. There are some decks that can perform really well against Scred Delver because they have awkward mana draws, and I just think a lot of decks, maybe besides like mono green Stompy, I think a lot of decks just fold to a good mono blue Delver player. And it's just, that's another one of those really like eloquent decks. It's like, well, I'm trying to maintain this guise that Pauper is an unsolved format, and like, you know, suspend disbelief that I'm going to break something with a new card. I always go back to like mono blue Delver, a deck that's existed and been tuned since, you know, mono blue control back in like the early 2000s or whatever. Like that deck has been getting good and getting better since the format began. So it's kind of like one of those things that I'm always afraid to run into. And I'm like, is this person really good at mono blue Delver, and are they sandbagging, you know, like a vapor snag to win the game right now? Like that, I think that's my boogeyman, is mono blue. But it's not, but not to the point where I don't want to run into it. It's a good litmus test.
No, that's all fair points. Man, I just had to look through all the fairy options, and there's some interesting stuff. And I did, just for viewers at home, misquote Dream Spoiler, which is because it's just casting a spell during an opponent's turn.
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. It can have flash as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my favorite one was oh man, the other half of the Splinter Twin combo. Pestermite. Yeah. So that was my favorite one. I did misclick and use Pestermite's ability wrong, but you can really get people like cast your Pestermite, untap a Karoo land, you know, cast a Think Twice or whatever, and yeah, that was my favorite card in my build of it.
Oh man. So when you're not playing these sort of rogue decks that you have for your channel, what decks do you play? Like, is this everything you do in Pauper, or is there the thing that you play when you're just like, all right, I just want to play an established deck that I enjoy?
No, I generally play decks that are worse than the ones that actually make it to the stage for possibly Pauper playable. So you think some of those are bad, then you should see what my Saturday mornings look like.
I was going to say, how many revisions do these things go through? Like
a lot, like kind of an embarrassing amount. Like, well, maybe not. I don't know. This is what I do, right? So yeah. So I'll block off pretty huge amounts of time and just tune a deck down. And sometimes I just throw stuff out. Like the first time I tried a Dream Spoiler Witch deck, it didn't make it to see the light of day. And that was when Burnt Offering first came out. Like it was okay, but Burnt Offering was never better than Dark Ritual. So I, you know, played 6 matches, let's say, in like the practice rooms, like junked it, you know, moved on to something else for that week. So they do generally see a ton of iterations. Like I'll play anywhere between like 10 and 12 practice matches kind of on, you know, between Friday and Saturday, preparing to record a deck tech on Sunday night. And then sometimes Sunday morning, like I just got nothing and I'm just jamming, jamming tournament practice matches until I've got something that I can commit to video. So it kind of depends. If a deck's really good, like if I actually feel confident in it, you know, maybe I'll take some time away and I'll take a little time off that weekend or something. But yeah, usually a ton of iterations, most of which are bad.
I mean, that is as someone who's been playing Magic for well over half his life, that does not surprise me. But I guess for people who are getting into Pauper and kind of want to follow this path of like trying out new things and brewing decks, is there any sort of advice that you'd have for those people? Because we occasionally get that question, and I'm always kind of like, just play good cards, or like take an existing list and tweak it a little bit. Like, I'm not sitting here trying to break the metagame. So maybe is there any advice you could give for those people who are kind of looking to break into this?
Yeah. Be really open-minded. Like, don't get stuck. You know, like go out there and consume content like this podcast and like, you know, the guys over at Common Knowledge and, you know, YouTubers like the guy that does Pauper Ponderings there and like other Pauper players, you know, people that are established pros, like how are their lines? You know, do some of your brew cards line up with the way that those pros are playing? Can you take advantage of things the way they do? And like go back further too. So like go watch, you know, Magic the Gathering strat videos from 2001 and just, you know, get really deep into it. You know what I mean? And just consume as much as you can. Just recently I posted one of my Reddit articles talking about how I was digging into MTG Salvation's, you know, old archives. Like that's a really great resource too. Like go back and consume as much as you can. Just keep getting it in, bringing it like, you know, as much as you can, absorb as much as you can. And then when you have time, build a deck. Don't build something super flimsy. Our meta is I wouldn't like, it's fairly established. There's strategies that work, learn from those strategies, use those strategies to prop up the cool things you want to do. And and then eventually kind of try to branch out from that, try to use all of that information to kind of build something unique, like towards your play style, and then like break through. Because that does happen, like there, Mono White Heroic is a new deck, and very few of those cards were popular before that deck came to be. So like, I guess mutagenic growth, and that's kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, so just consume as much as you can, listen to other players, participate in communities, and yeah, use all of the information those people have to take your card that you really want to highlight and give her.
Jeff, our format doesn't deserve you. That was beautiful.
That was more heartfelt than I think anything we've ever put on this show, because usually you can follow your dreams, or you could just play a real deck. Is like kind of kind of how I feel we come off sometimes.
And I feel like, I don't know if I should give myself credit, but I feel like part of this whole renaissance is like, I think I started a little tiny ripple somewhere deep in the bowels of the Pauper community that said like, we've got Johnnies too, there's Johnnies in here, we just want to be Johnnies and Timmies, like it's not all spikes in the Pauper format. And that's it, right? Like my mentality is the Johnny mentality. It's about finding a way to do that cool thing, whereas a lot of other people are spikes, and that's cool too. You can be spikes, you can be Johnnies, you can be Jennies, spikes, Timmies, like do whatever you want. But I feel like it's important to let Wizards and the community at large know, like, you can be a Johnny and play Pauper if you want. Like every format is going to have those people. So I'm trying to be like the poster child Johnny, and I'm yelling real loud about it so that hopefully other people hear it. We get more Johnnies and people just having fun playing Magic the way they want to,
Yeah, I mean, I think that is really admirable. And that's kind of part of the reason I wanted to have you on the show for a while, is because we, have been maligned by some as quote elitist spikes about our podcast, and I do really like, I do watch your content. Like I really enjoy watching like what is out there and seeing the far extremes of what this format can be, because I have played it so long. Like I understand the matchups, like the blue red Delver Boros Monarch matchup is an interesting matchup, but it's situationally interesting. Like I know the things that occur in this matchup, and like if I watch footage of that, like I am probably not going to be surprised. I'm probably not going to see new lines that I've never seen before out of either of these decks. So I definitely did want to get kind of the other perspective, because I definitely feel like at times, barring last week, this show definitely gets into like the more competitive side. And I did want to show people that like there's more to the format than just 5-0ing leagues and like trying to utterly optimize a 75 to like beat the meta game. But yeah, I definitely do appreciate that this is still very much alive and well, because decks don't come from nowhere. There's no deck that's just like suddenly appears. It's someone sitting there and brewing and play testing extensively. And, as you said, it might not be take vengeance, but there's definitely cards out there with unexplored potential.
And for what it's worth, I don't think you guys are elitist spikes. You're like way too friendly for that.
I know we got that comment once or twice, and now like I just find it funny, because anyone who's played me in real life or has met me in real life knows
Mike,
that
I think that person was probably joking though.
Oh no. There was someone who was very upset with us about trash talking a brew that was on the show.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it was but like anyone who knows me, like I show up to Pauper events with terrible decks. Adrian will attest to this. I have shown up with
2-2. Oh, that joke never gets old.
That was like the biggest magic burn, man.
Mike's familiar with
like
it.
It's not like he's used this one before.
Oh, you got you good.
And I will make the same joke that I always make, is that it's much more of a yoked ox situation most of the time,
Oh, I feel you.
But yeah, so I guess we're getting close to an hour. So Jeff, if there's anything you'd like to plug, obviously you've got your YouTube and your Twitch and all that. So I'll let you take care of that, and then we'll probably sign off for the episode. It was great having you on.
Yeah,
though.
thank you so much for having me, guys. So you can catch me on twitch.tv/Anynewprovince every Monday and Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Atlantic time. On Monday night, we play decks that either top 8 really big tournaments or take out a deck that's been 5-0ing recently that we haven't seen a lot of. So it's competitive decks. We're trying to kind of like see that upper echelon of the Pauper metagame. And then on Tuesday, we do Possibly Pauper Playable, where I play new cards you heard a lot about throughout the podcast. And then I upload all of that stuff to YouTube on a fairly regular schedule. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you get a little bit of extra content. There's deck techs up there. I also do set reviews for every set that gets released. So I'm always on there. I'm on Twitter saying weird stuff about my life and posting bands I like. And I have a Discord, and you can find an invite to that on any of my videos. You can just Google Anynewprovince. I've gone to painstaking lengths so that you run into me somehow when you do that. But yeah, and keep listening to these guys. Especially go back to the episode of Color Commentary where they talk about organizing your paper collection, because that actually helped a lot while I was putting together paper Pauper decks.
Oh wow, that's an old one. That's a real out of the vault.
That was a real good episode. I feel like I really got to know you guys.
The fact that I'm completely anal and have everything sorted out by minutia, and Adrian's just like, they're in a box.
But like an organized box.
No, yeah. It's not organized at all.
I think it was at the time. I don't know. Maybe you were putting it okay. But it's a good episode.
my Pauper box is organized. My other boxes are not.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Jeff. It was great to have you on, and shine light on the side of Pauper that we don't always get to see quite so much on the show. And yeah, go check out his stuff. It is really good quality content.
Thank you so much, guys. I seriously appreciate it. It's been awesome to get to hang out with you. Seriously.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Adrian, you want to take us out of the show for the night?
Let's do it. Thanks everyone for joining us today. This podcast is brought to you by the support of our patrons. I always say that wrong. Of which Jeff is one, but sorry, Jeff. I'm going to give the shout out today to Pyrison. That's our patron shout out for the day. Please consider supporting us just like them if you like the show. You can check below this video or the description of this podcast for details on where to find us, and we'll go ahead and link Jeff as well. We'd like to remind you, if you're listening to this on a platform with reviews, they're always appreciated because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list or idea for a topic, you can contact us either via our website or you can email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to my LGS Pat's Games, Mike's LGS JP Comics, and of course the ever musically talented L. He does our theme song Quantitative and other great tracks. You can find them at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELL. So next week, this is Adrian and Mike and
Jeff.
And we're signing off for Color Commentary.